Hey, thank you very much to our tech people. I think no challenge is too big for IT, and I think there's always that magic of restart. So thank you. And to people online, just to recap what I said and you missed. So this event is the last one of World of Week that is hosted by the Alumni Office. And it's been going on since Monday, and we're ending with a bang with AgriScience because aren't we just the coolest? Please say it. Yes. So because we are so important, we found that it's very necessary that we invite the important people who contribute greatly to the industry, but also can give us a bit of background on what is happening in the industry. So people online, if you want to ask questions or want to share something on the chat, please do. I am monitoring the chat from my side, so I will keep an eye on your questions as well. We have 3 super awesome guests. One even flew all the way from the very not so cold KZN to Stellenbosch to be with us. So we are very honored. And unfortunately, one of our speakers caught the unfortunate COVID. It's still there, believe me. So unfortunately, she couldn't be with us in person here, but she's joining us online. And I'm sure you can see her on the screen there. But I'm going to start with our first speaker. Oh, before I start with that, I want to share why I specifically chose that we touch a bit on the theme of the evening. So as agri-science, we will always be faced with 3 specific challenges. One of them is feeding a growing population. We play a huge role as an industry to continuously feed a growing population, and we need to think about our methods and ways of improving access and addressing food security in the process. So that's one of the big challenges. The second one is providing a livelihood for farmers. Now, we all know that we have the large scale farmers, but some of our greatest contributors are our local farmers, and these are the small scale farmers. So as an industry, we also need to ensure that as much as we want to produce mass scale products, we also need to sustain the livelihoods of these farmers because they contribute a great deal to our GDP, but also employment in the country. So that's the second one. And then the last one is protecting the environment. I think of all the industries, forestry, I am from forestry. Agriculture is the one that is experiencing the worst effects of climate change, but we also have a huge role to play in combating any threats that increases the risk and challenges that are associated with climate change. So I specifically thought that it's important for us to think about these 3 challenges as we navigate the conversation tonight. And our 3 speakers, they were briefed to touch on it based on the background that they have, but also their careers. But it's not limited to that. It's just the mind space that I'd like us to keep our minds in. So I'll start with Jacomien. So Jacomien, please. Sorry, Jacomien de Klerk, excuse me. Please just introduce yourself to us. Tell us a bit more about what you do, where you're from, and one thing that you like the most about yourself.
Only one thing. Sheesh. Right. Yes, I think the thing that I like the most about myself is that I don't take myself seriously at all. So, well, not at all, but in all ways that matter, I don't take myself very seriously. So, I'm Jacomien de Klerk. No family connection. I am the general manager of. Oloff apparently does have a family connection, just so that you know. I am the general manager of the Citrus Academy. We work out of Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal. We are a non-profit company that work in the citrus industry, that work in skills development, human resource development in the citrus industry. So some of the work that we do, we work for growers, in the interest of growers. We are funded by them. So we work to improve the sustainability of growers by looking at human resource development and ensuring that they have the necessary capacity, people, and so forth to run their businesses sustainably and profitably. And then we are also then specifically responsible for transformation in the citrus industry. So some of the work that we do, we have a bursary fund. So we, at any given time, have about 70 students on our bursary fund every year. Some of them at Stellenbosch. We provide bursaries to students from second year, degree level, right through to PhD level. Students that study qualifications that will get them jobs in the citrus industry. So we are rather specific about what you study. And then, things like academic performance, existing connections to the citrus industry and so forth obviously count in your favor. If you do get a bursary from the academy, you have to work your time back in the industry. So obviously we don't see this as charity. We don't give away money through bursaries. We see it as an investment in the industry, for the industry the industry is making in human resources, so that those students will come and work then in the industry and improve the skills levels in the industry itself. The citrus industry in South Africa is rather large. We are by far the largest fruit industry. I know you sit here in the independent Republic of the Western Cape, so you think that apples, pears, and wine grapes is the only thing that people really grow. I can tell you that this is not exactly true. The citrus industry is the biggest fruit industry. We earn more foreign currency than all the stones, all the pomes, apples and pears, and the subtropical fruit all put together. We earn more foreign currency than any of them. South Africa is only the 13th largest producer of fresh citrus in the world, but we are the second largest exporter. Only Spain export more fruit than South Africa in the whole world. We are, of course, counter-seasonal to the Northern Hemisphere, so we provide the Northern Hemisphere basically with all the citrus that they eat during the summer. So we are a considerable industry, not only in terms of South African agriculture, but also in terms of world production. In terms of citrus production around the world, South Africa is actually a significant player. The industry employs around 140,000 people, including seasonal workers. And it has a rather long value chain, going all the way from nurseries through to primary production, to packhouses, to the logistics chain. It is a rather long chain, as you can imagine, taking fruit from wherever it is grown in South Africa to the overseas market. There's lots of job opportunities. South Africa is definitely known as the leading applied research, or the CRI, Citrus Research International, which is our sister company that works in research in the industry. They are known as the leading citrus research institute around the world. So there's a lot of job opportunities in terms of research, in terms of extension, and so forth. So it is an industry that has also grown very, very quickly over the last about 5 years. People have had a few very, very good years in the industry since about 2015. So there's been very good years, and people have planted a lot more citrus. At the moment, if you took a turn around the Boland, you'll see people pulling out wine grapes and planting citrus trees now. I know that it has its particular challenges. One worries about that kind of thing, but it does mean that the industry is keeping growing. It is a little bit tougher right now. We are faced with problems such as increasing input costs, the fuel price, the fertilizer price, and so forth. We are faced with logistics challenges and problems around the whole world and in South Africa itself. So right now it's a little bit tough, but it's an industry that is very strong. We've been exporting citrus in South Africa for about 120 years, or from South Africa for about 120 years. So it's an old industry, it's well established, and there are lots and lots of opportunities in that industry. So that's a little bit about us. Just in terms of myself, I actually started out my working career as working for an auditor firm. So if you want to know what is multidisciplinary and how a career path can go, mine was rather winding. I started working for an audit firm, from where I got involved in training, computerized accounting system training and system development. From there, I went on to do help companies with statutory, sorting out statutory setups and did a lot of system design and so forth, ended up working in development farming, in citrus farming for growers in the Limpopo province, where I helped them to develop their financial models for their citrus farms. Got involved in training through being involved with those farms. And then when the Citrus Growers Association at the beginning of 2005 decided to start a Citrus Academy, so yes, 17 years ago, well, almost 18 years ago, when they decided to do that, they offered me the job, and that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. So it is a rather long and winding road, but I've been doing what I'm doing now for about 18 years. So that's then shortly what we're all about and what I'm all about. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Wow, thank you so much for not taking yourself serious. I hope you did take her seriously with what she said, especially with what the Citrus Academy does. I think it's quite amazing work. And I hope that you have questions that you're already noting to her, because there's quite a lot of knowledge and experience that you can get from Jacomien. Now, let's move to our Brandy. So our next speaker of the evening is Oloff Bergh. Oloff is one of the people that especially vegans should be extremely grateful for, because he is very much responsible for ensuring that we still get soy milk. So Oloff is from COFCO. And Oloff, I just want to ask if you could please tell us a bit more about what you do and what you like most about yourself.
Guys, my name is Oloff Bergh. I'm a trade manager at COFCO International, overseeing all trade-related activities. I have over 30 years experience in trading maize, wheat, sunflower, and soybeans. Trading activities include trading the physical product, imports and exports, as well as future-related trade, both on the local and international futures market. We also have a farming unit, farms mainly in the summer growing areas. We own a crushing facility in Mpumalanga, and I've been intimately involved with trading the crush margins and all trading activities for that crushing plant. As you mentioned, the crushing plant produces two products, basically. Soybean oil, which is a veg oil that's used in your blending that you eat in the market, veg oil that you buy in the market, and soybean meal, that's the primary protein source of specifically poultry. And COFCO International is an international agribusiness, specializing in the whole value chain from origination, storage. We own port facilities, crushing facilities worldwide. We own our own vessels. We're intimately involved in moving the product to the end consumer. Our main shareholder is COFCO Mainland. It's the biggest food company in China. To give you a bit of perspective, South Africa produces about, call it 15 million tons of maize and about 1.5 to 2 million tons of soybeans. China imports between 90 and 100 million tons of soybeans per annum. That market is big and it's growing. Currently, the world population is 7.7 billion. They're expected to grow to about 9 billion by 2050, and we see the food.
Wow, that's impressive. Thank you for sharing that, Oloff. I'm still waiting to hear what's your favorite thing about yourself.
My personality trait, I'm very analytical, so I'm very loyal.
Ah, lovely. Okay. I'm hearing some mumbles there. Thank you so much for that. And I think what's also quite fascinating with COFCO is how international and broad it is. So I just want to encourage anyone, especially if you are curious about the agriculture industry internationally, he's our person tonight. So please do ask him questions as much as you can, obviously within the spectrum of his work. Then our third speaker is Siziphiwe Dinwa. I remember Siziphiwe used to be our soil science demi when I was struggling with soil science. So it's very great to be on this side of the screen and actually still picking on her brain. So Siziphiwe, could you please introduce yourself to us and tell us a bit more about what you do and your favorite thing about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Siziphiwe Dinwa. Sorry, as you guys heard, I've got COVID, so my voice is not necessarily the best, but I hope you guys can hear me. Thumbs up.
Yes, we can.
So Firstly, Zimbili, it's actually unfair that you're only saying one thing we like about ourselves. When we've got the platform, we might as well just go for it, because we don't think about the things we like about ourselves often enough. So I'm going to start just with the introduction. So as I've mentioned, I'm Siziphiwe. A lot of people call me Sizi. And I was born in a small town in the Eastern Cape called Dutwa. So for those people that are not familiar with that side, it's between Tata and Goa, which is Butterworth. And I stayed there until I was like 6 years old and then moved to the Western Cape and have, like Jacomien said, I've been in the Republic of the Western Cape for a very long time. And I then studied my graduate at Stellenbosch University, did it in BSc, Soil and Water Management, and I majored in horticultural sciences and soil sciences. And then I went on to do my master's in soil science, which is how I then met Zimbili because I was one of her demis. And while I was doing my master's, sort of like 6 months in, I got a job offer at Elsenburg Agricultural College to lecture pomology and soil science, which is basically soil science and plant physiology, what we call horticultural sciences. So lectured for 2 years. And then after that, I decided that I really just needed to get into the industry, understand commercial farming, because I'm not from a commercial farming background. So I then decided to go to the Platteland and then went to Ceres. For those people that are not familiar with Ceres, it's approximately 150 kilometers from Cape Town. And I worked for a big company that worked in fresh produce. So they did, or they do, pome fruit, stone fruit, cherries, which is the division I was mostly involved in the technical division. So basically helping growers to understand the new technology that's coming out there and how technology can actually assist them in the day-to-day work and production. So basically testing the new technology, using it, and then using it to, in essence, get uniformity in quality and yield. And then basically, I really just wanted to go and work in the farming industry just to diversify my context outside of academia. And I think that's one of the best things that I actually did, because I thought I was very academic until I realized that I actually enjoy working with farmers more than I do with academics, even though I still do a bit of both right now. And the last 7 months, I started a new position in a global company as a senior technologist for agronomy and innovation. And this company basically has its footprints in South Africa, in the north of South Africa, so such as Northwest, Limpopo, and in the Gauteng region. So we've got growers that side. We've got growers in the south, which is around the Western Cape. And then we've got one grower in Zambia, and then some growers in Australia, Portugal, Mexico, and in America. And I'm more involved again in the technical side, helping growers, working with them, optimizing their production, getting the best quality yield. And it's in blueberries right now. So left the pome and the stone fruit industry. And how can we, or basically again within ag tech space and crop estimates and getting that accurate so that we can actually sell our crops to our customers, and using drones, satellite imagery, GoPro systems to basically maximize our production. So that's my introduction.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and one thing that I like about myself, very difficult question. I think I've built a brand of being reliable, trustable, and likable. And people like people that are likable. That's what I learned. And being relatable as well, so that I can speak to just about anyone.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Siziphiwe. That was quite a lot, but it's also very inspiring to just hear all those different workspaces that you've been into. I just want to ask you if you are comfortable with that, just to give a perspective to the audience. So when did you graduate?
So I graduated with my undergraduate studies in 2016, and then with my master's in 2018.
Thank you. So the reason why I specifically asked you is that you've heard how much she has explored already in the industry. And one of the questions that gets to people sometimes, and I'm just going to ask our two speakers in here to answer on that, is people are worried that if they continue and study or do their postgrad and do their masters or PhDs, that they may be overqualified. Should they be concerned about being overqualified, Jacomien?
Well, if you're matching the job that you're applying for with the qualification that you have, then how can you be overqualified for that? If you're going to walk out of here with a master's and apply for a, I don't know, farm worker position or an orchard manager position, yes, of course you're going to be overqualified for that position. So what you need to be very clear on, and I think that this is one of the essential things that is so important for young people looking for job opportunities and looking for the right job, is to be very clear on what it is that your qualification actually means. I mean, you study for it for, you study towards it for years, but you need to be very clear on what the skill set is that you actually walk out of here, and the knowledge set that you have when you walk out of here with that qualification. And you need to get to know the industry. You shouldn't be applying for a job that you think sounds more or less like the right thing. What you should do is you should be very clear on what does the industry look like. What industry is it that you're interested in? Where do you want to? Do you want to make wine? Do you want to work in the fruit industry? Anything isn't really an answer to that question. You should be doing spending time doing research on and refining what it is that you think that you'd like to do most. And being then very clear on what it is in the industry, or what industry it is that interests you. Even if you can't answer that question, then at least in what part of the value chain are you most interested in? Do you want to be in research? Do you want to be on a farm? Do you want to be on the business end? Do you want to work for an input supplier? Do you want to work in logistics? Where in the agricultural industry? Do you want to work in food sciences? Where in the agricultural industry do you want to work? Do research online, phone people, speak to people, network with people, find out, ask questions, and then go and look at what does particular jobs mean. What does it mean to do a particular job? And it is important when you ask this question, when you start looking for that job, that job for you, it is really, really important that you find your passion, that you do what you love. It is really important because you're going to be doing a job, especially when you start out, you're going to be doing it for at least a third of your life. If you're going to be doing it for 8 hours a day, you sleep for 8 hours a day, you work for 8 hours a day, I don't know what you're going to do for the other 8 hours a day, but a third of your life at least. And I can promise you when you start out working, it's probably going to be considerably more than that. You're going to be spending doing that job. So it is very important that you do what you're passionate about, that you do what you love. If you're passionate about feeding a growing population, about improving farmer profitability and sustainability, if you're passionate about looking after the environment, protecting the environment, these are the things that drives one. I happen to be passionate about education. I'm passionate about creating opportunities, learning opportunities. This is what I'm passionate about. I've been doing it for 18 years. I'm still passionate about it. It's important that you must do that, and that you're also realistic about what a job entails. Always remember the very important lesson we learn from veterinary sciences. People study to be vets because they love animals, and they spend a good part of the rest of their lives finding the most humane way to kill animals. That is a very important lesson to learn from veterinary sciences. Be very clear on what it is that your job entails. What does it mean day to day? Are you going to be sitting in an office? Are you going to be spending time in a lab? Are you going to be out in a bakkie riding around farms? Are you going to be working with your hands in the soil? Are you going to be on the phone trading? Are you going to be on a computer answering emails? Are you going to be on the phone fighting with people? Yeah, it all depends on your personality. Some people there's a person for each of those jobs. But it is important that you do your research, and that you also then, in terms of ensuring that you have the right qualification for the right job, that you go and look at exactly what the skill set is that you have, or that you're really realistic about what skill set it is that your qualification give to you, and then go and look for the job that matches up with that skill set. You can always shoot higher, you can always shoot lower, but you need to know that that is what you're doing. So at least that you are comfortable that you are shooting for the right job.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. There's something else you shared earlier about what education really is. Can you please share that again?
Well, I can't exactly, I'll not claim this at all as an original quote, but I can't exactly remember who said this, but education is what remains after you've forgotten everything that you learned. So it is basically what you can do in the end, and not what you think in your head. So.
Thank you very much. I really love that you said that, because I think what we usually worry about towards the end of the degree is, I've done genetics, I've done soil science, I've done biometry, but I don't even know how to tell people what skills I have from those degrees. The most important thing is, what are you capable of after you finish writing those exams? So thank you for that reminder. Now, on your side, Oloff, yes, can people really be overqualified?
I don't believe you can be overqualified in university. I think one needs to build up as much knowledge and information as possible during those years. You need to differentiate yourself from the rest of the place. Market is a very difficult to get into. To be invited for an interview, you need to provide something that's slightly different from the next person. I think we also need to manage expectations. You're always going to start your work at the bottom. If you have the qualities that are suited for that job, you will work yourself up quickly and develop quickly. So, I don't think you can be overqualified to this point of view.
Oh, thank you for that, Oloff. And then from you, Siziphiwe, so one of the interesting parts that you shared about yourself is how your interest is moving now towards artificial intelligence and innovation within agriculture, whereas your background has been very much in horticulture and soil science. So what is currently inspiring that change? And is there really room for us to be empowering ourselves to invest in those skills? And what can current graduates, and especially our alumni as well, start exploring for them to be relevant within this Internet of Things state that we're in now?
I like that question, actually. So a lot of people ask me that, and the simple answer is that's where the world is moving. And because the world is moving into the Internet of Things using different robotic systems, data, big data systems, and mining that and making sense of that and adding value and insight to data, to the farming industry, is actually key. So so I joined in one of the economics faculty, actually, and Prof. Rachel Jafter said something really beautiful. And she literally said that it's about turning that data into knowledge. And that's exactly what it's about. Because in the farming industry, there's literally a lot of data coming from years before I was even born, before I was even considered of being born, for that matter. And the thing is that data, growers need, or farmers need to use that data in their day-to-day operations. And us as young people that really we basically grew up in an environment where technology is part of our day-to-day life. So for us, it makes more sense. We understand it. If you look at how we're so involved with social media, how can we actually use that using those skills that we have with technology and understanding the science, and also looking at data and adding insight and value to it. So that's actually where the world is going. Artificial intelligence, identifying pests and diseases without having to walk your orchard. Not saying that's growers aren't doing that, but identifying hotspots where growers can actually go and focus. So we even have quite a lot of companies within South Africa, startups, that are in that field, such as aerobotics, and also even placing of irrigation systems, for that matter, because you mentioned that are moving more towards artificial intelligence. The lovely thing actually is that I'm using artificial intelligence, and what I've learned and my understanding of plant physiology, and also soil science and irrigation scheduling, and understanding different types of soils together as a merge to actually make it make sense and add insight to growers. So even with robots right now, where they can identify different hotspots where growers can actually go and check, are there issues there that are soil related? Are they plant related? Is there differences in their vigor, which basically means are there differences in chlorophyll levels, and how to translate that data? Because a lot of data scientists and arrow or data scientists in particular, and people that really understand artificial intelligence don't necessarily have the skills of physiology that we learn at university. And just to add to that, to Jacomien and Oloff, they mentioned something about you can never be overqualified. And I absolutely agree with that, because you really do need to differentiate yourself. Because to be quite honest with you, had I not had a master's, I would have never gotten my position. I would have never gotten a foot in the industry within the line of what I'm doing. So, and part of it is even the niche that I'm now carving for myself in the ag tech space is more so a matter of we all learning through the process. And part of learning through the process, a master's and a PhD or postgraduate is a good differentiator to actually make you more inquisitive, to be able to analyze data in a way that a normal undergraduate study or degree doesn't necessarily give you that opportunity. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. I think what you also demonstrated for us there is the opportunities in agriculture are expanding, and which is very exciting. So I'm going to take questions from the audience now. I'm going to start with one online, and then if there are questions from the floor, please raise your hands now so that I can just take note. Okay, so we have a question from an MM. I apologize, I can't see your name properly. But the question is to the panelists, and that is, what are the biggest concerns currently in the agricultural industry that we need to address? And a follow-up, given these challenges, how should students position themselves to rise to these challenges? So Oloff, can I start with you?
That's a very broad question, isn't it? Look, I think looking forward, we need to continue to feed a lot of people. And by doing that, I think we probably need to get more technologically advanced. We need to get better at managing our resources like water. You know, technology, you're talking about seed technology, you're talking about precision farming, you're talking about using satellite technology and so forth. So, you know, for individual to get, you know, more involved in there, you know, I think it goes more probably about character traits rather than what specifically what you can do. I think one needs to be adaptable, need to be resourceful, shouldn't be easily flustered. You know, these type of qualities, I think, will lead you well into these type of
opportunities. Okay, well, thank you for that answer then. And I'm guessing it's partly also your attitude as a person then, and those qualities that you mentioned. So thank you for that. And what about you, Jacomien? What are the biggest concerns currently?
Well, as I said, in the citrus industry specifically, you know, they're very much direct, immediate concerns with the increasing, like in most of agriculture, in fact, increasing input costs, logistics challenges. It's getting more and more difficult to move fruit. It is a internal South African problem, but it's also a worldwide problem. So these things are immediately now the challenges that we're facing in the industry on the probably short to medium term. On a broader front, though, the challenges that you so very nicely summarized in the theme for this evening of providing food for a growing population. So farming more efficiently, more effectively, while being very responsible with resource use at the same time, and while maintaining profitability in the light of challenges such as rising input costs and so forth. these are the concerns of the industry and of the sector, of the entire sector on a wider front, on a longer scale. What do students do? What do you need to do? Well, we all work together in resolving these issues. We work with government, we work with overseas governments, we work with on a political level, we work on an individual enterprise level. We all work together in order to address these challenges and to improve the prospects of the industry. What you can do is to, again, be informed, know what's going on, read about the industry that you're interested in, make sure that you understand what is going on and what are the wider challenges. It is also very important that you must be multidisciplinary, that you must be able to not only have the technical know-how, which is often, and the academic knowledge that come often with your qualification, but that you must broaden or that you must develop the manner in which you can address problems. This is one of the biggest challenges that I think is ahead for the agricultural sector. Addressing all of these problems require that we work together, that we work at various levels, and that we think differently about how these problems can be addressed. We've already seen in the last few years that even on an individual farm level, but definitely then on a wider industry level, there's a requirement to think about things in terms of systems, not in terms of a process, not in terms of the one thing happens after the other thing, or in terms of I'm going to be doing my little job here today. It is very important that you must think about the work that you do, that you must think about the industry that you're about to enter as a system, and understand how that system works, understand how production system works, how value systems work, and how it all integrates, because it's at that level that we will find solutions for the challenges that are facing us now. It is important that you must have an understanding and a very healthy relationship with risk. There's no use in not being willing to ever to take a chance, to be too conservative, to think that we can't. Oloff being a trader, I think will be able to extrapolate on that much more. There's no point in that. That won't get us anywhere. That won't solve any problems. It is time to be courageous and to face problems, but to also know what the risks are and to be able to play those risks. And these are very important disciplines for you to understand and for you to learn, to expand your understanding and your ability to look at systems, to manage systems, to understand risk, to manage risk. Managing risk does not mean avoiding risk. Managing risk means managing risk. To understand what it is to manage projects, to understand how finances work. Even if you are in agriculture, you need to understand how money works. All of these things broaden your skills base, acquire additional skills. If a person gets 10 applications from people that have just finished their degrees at university, what you're going to be looking at is which students have taken the time to broaden their skills base, who has got the additional skills, the additional learning, who did the additional work in order to broaden their skills base, who has taken the opportunity to learn about problem solving. It's a skill. It's not just something that some people can do and some people can't do, and if you can't do it, you can never learn it. You learn it. You learn how to solve problems. You learn how to manage risk. And these are things that you can really do yourself a favor by focusing on while you're still at university and really learning these skills, because that will enable you to grow very quickly in your career. And that will also assist you in helping the industry to overcome the challenges that are facing us. Any challenges at any point. These are the skills we need to overcome them.
Thank you very much, Jacomien. And I think this just reminds me of all Monica's emails that she shares with us about those extra short courses that we can do in those leadership courses. I think it will be worth investing the next time you see her email, because clearly it's one of your ways to show that you're doing something extra for yourself. Now, Oloff, you wanted to add something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss, a big risk in our business is deterioration in the infrastructure in South Africa. Our roads are not in a good state. Our rail is mostly non-functional at the moment. Port facilities has deteriorated. We've had floods recently. And I think to just expect government to fix that on their own is probably wishful thinking at the moment. So there will have to be a collaborative approach between the private sector, farmers, and government to solve this problem going forward, because it is a real problem and it's costing the whole industry a lot of money and has real risk of moving products around as is needed in South Africa.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. I totally agree with you. And I think what you also mentioned a part of it of, how there's different opportunities for us within politics, within businesses, and with the government. So you will find your place in the agriculture industry if you do your homework and actually just research the industry better, the whole value chain. I mean, it doesn't make sense that you have someone in government making decisions on conservation and they've never learned much about Thank you, that word, conservation. So you will be our next people who can actually help make sure that the decisions that are made are based on systems-based thinking. And I think it's quite critical that we see the full value chain in all of that. Siziphiwe, is there something else that you'd like to say with relation to those biggest concerns and the challenges?
I don't want to bore everyone. I think both Jacomien and Oloff actually summed it up beautifully. And I just want to emphasize, though, the importance of just that collaboration, multidisciplinary, understanding, not just being technical, which I naturally am, really understanding how does finance influence the growers, fertilizer prices, what does it mean, all throughout the whole value chain, actually, and understanding the impact of even research and how that links into the bigger scheme of things and the risks that growers actually constantly have to manage. And I forgot to mention one thing actually also in my introduction, that when I was a student, Monica knows this really well, I literally would bug her and just ask, are there any opportunities for me to go into the industry? Like I said, I'm not from this industry. I didn't know anything about it when I started studying agri. So it is important that while you're at varsity, that you don't just focus on just your hard skills, which are academic, but also hone your soft skills as well. And what I mean by soft skills, be inquisitive, get into the industry, knock on people's doors. And even if you're volunteering, and the thing is, people really do appreciate that. And what you're doing for yourself is that you're creating a network of people that start understanding you. They know you're inquisitive, you're interested in this industry. And that is actually one thing that by the time you start applying for jobs, people already know who you are. And to be quite honest with you, I think that's probably why it was much easier for me to get into the industry, merely because people knew about me. They knew I was literally working in pack houses on June holidays, some December holidays as well. And I was working within the line of what I was studying and also in the line of some like economics as well. So you get introduced to agri-economics, which I never studied it, but it is important for you to know that. And that's part of that research. So research is not just only sitting behind your PC and Googling, but also really putting yourself out there and knocking on people's doors. And believe it or not, people are actually willing to help you if you ask. But I think sometimes we're always so scared to ask and you think you're going to be rejected. Rejection is good if you've actually put yourself out there. But don't just assume that people are going to reject you and they don't want to assist you. The reality is there are some people out there that really want to help young people, especially coming out of varsity, that are inquisitive, that are interested in the industry. They gain from you being inquisitive and the extra hands as much as you gain the experience and the network. And sorry, one last thing. I suffered, probably still do, quite a lot with imposter syndrome in the industry that I'm in. And I don't know how many times people have told me that they also sometimes feel like frauds. Like sometimes you sit there and you ask yourself, what am I doing? Like people are going to catch up with that you don't know what you're talking about. And the reality is we're all just trying. We're all trying individuals. We wake up, we try to do the best that we can with the problems that we have. And again, it is important for you, part of the research and everything, and being inquisitive and knocking on doors, is also gaining mentors, people that you can speak to, people that can assist you. Because to be quite honest, you can't do this alone. It is collaborative all the way up, all the way through the value chain.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that, Siziphiwe. I think it's quite empowering, but also just interesting that you also touched on the part that chances are people are willing to help you. And mostly we too worried that people are too busy worrying about their job. So why would they have time for me? And it reminds me of a quote that I heard earlier. I'll probably misquote it today at the forestry webinar. And it's a quote by Tom Bellio. It was in the lines of being mad at someone for not providing a need. It's like being mad at a server for not serving you something you didn't ask for. So it's important that we actually do tell people, or when we are engaging with industry, that we ask the right and relevant questions to our needs so that they can give us the right information. So thank you for touching on that. Are there any questions from the room in here before I go on to our next question online? Okay, so I see the hand at the back. I'll start with you because your hand shot up first. Yes, please just project. Wow. Okay, is that all? Okay, so the question, I feel for the others, but look forward to hear how it's going to be answered. So the question is, what are your long-term career goals? I'll start with you, Siziphiwe.
I think my long-term career goals is definitely being global, taking our skills global, whether that means me staying, I don't know if I would actually, I know our country is going through a lot, but I do enjoy being South African and staying in South Africa. But yeah, staying overseas and just understanding the market a bit better from that side. But more so, and which is probably why I chose to be in the blueberry industry and the company that I'm in, that actually has its footprint in different countries. So just linking all the agricultural problems that we have more holistically. And also, I think bringing that skill back to South Africa and actually helping smallholder farmers that don't necessarily always have the capacity, they don't always have the capital to actually get advisors that bigger companies actually can. So that's another thing that I want to do. And I definitely want to farm as well, something within the space of organic, and run my own thing, be an advisor. And yeah, that's what I want to do.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And I think you also started with raising baby plants, so getting closer to the farming. And what about yours, Jacomien, your long-term career goals?
Stop laughing. I might be a gogo, and maybe my long-term career goals is to retire in peace. Well, I think for me, and you know, it is even I'm 52 now, so I'm about, let's say I've got another 15, maybe 17, 20 years of my career left, which you know, it's what I have left, but it's just about as long as my career already has been. So you know, one shouldn't underestimate time. I know when you are your age, 40, 50, and 60 sounds more or less like the same age. Quite frankly, from my age, 80 and 90 sounds more or less like the same age. But it all counts, and it's important to make it all count. So my career goals at this point is to really to find ways to help more people, to see if there are ways that I can take what I've learned, what I've been so lucky in my life to learn, and to just experience, and to potentiate that, to see if it's possible to help more people. and not in kind of, oh, I am the major guru, and oh yes, all come to me. I'm going to sit on the mountain and all come to me for the eternal wisdom. Not in that way at all, but in a way that is practical, that gives access for young people to learning opportunities, to information. That gives opportunities for people throughout their lives, to information, to learning opportunities, to keep learning. It is such an important thing to keep doing that. And I think for me, that is also part of it. Believe me, there is a time in your life when you do become lazy to learn. And I think that it's a big misapprehension that you learn when you're young and the rest of your life you try and forget what it is that you learned. That is you should really aim to learn your entire life, to learn throughout your entire life. And I think that is so for me to keep on learning and to keep on seeing how what I know and how more and more people, how I can help more and more people through that. I think that would be my goals, and to retire in peace, of course.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate that you are still willing to share your wisdom, and I do believe that it's actually worth more than you are selling right now. So I'll be one of the people coming to you. Oloff, what are your long-term career goals?
It's a difficult one. Look, I think we want to, or I want to continue to build our business in South Africa. We're fairly established, but there's still a lot for us to do. We can do a lot on farming. I think we can develop a lot into Southern Africa, and possibly the rest of Africa. I think markets in general are fascinating. You always learn. We've just went through COVID that totally changed the world in terms of demand and supply. We just had war in Ukraine that totally threw a curveball into markets. So from that point of view, things are never the same, and one needs to continue to adapt to change, and I would like to continue to do that for the foreseeable future.
Oh, wonderful. So to the question there, he touched on something that makes me want to go on the next question. So can I just ask your question after this one? Okay, so we have a question from Offense Ao in the chat, and the question is, what is the impact of the recent EU trade regulations on refrigeration or temperatures on the citrus industry and trade volumes going forward? And a follow-up, where Yanni? Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. A follow-up, what is required to reduce the use of non-science-based perfectionist policies by key trade? So I keep clicking on the wrong thing, by key trade partners. So I think this is a question relevant to all of you, especially, well, citrus industry, but then the trade partners part as well, especially to the international people. So I'll repeat the first one. What is the impact of the recent EU trade regulations on refrigeration or temperatures on the citrus industry and trade volumes going forward?
Yes. Well, what is the impact? In short, that's basically the impact. So maybe just a little bit of background. I don't know if any of you've been, or if all of you have been following this in the news. I doubt it. I mean, I don't expect all of you to be reading the fruit industry news feeds. So what happens? As I said before, as I mentioned, the citrus industry is very much dependent on exports for our livelihood. So we export around 80% of the fruit, of the fresh fruit we produce in South Africa, but that generates about 96% of the income, 96% of the income from citrus. The remainder of the fruit goes to the local market and then to the processing market. But the export market is where the money is, and the export market is where we generate the vast majority of the income for the industry. About 40% of our fruit is exported to the UK and the EU. The rest of it goes to the rest of Europe, to the Far East, to the US, and so forth. But around 40% of it is exported to the UK and the EU. No, about 40% to the EU, around an additional 10% to the UK. So the EU is a significant importing country for South African citrus. So there are particular pests in citrus production that is called phytosanitary pests. If any of you study entomology, you might be aware of that, or if you study economics, or if you study, yeah. So phytosanitary pests are pests that is endemic to our country. So it is in South Africa, but it does not occur in overseas countries, in export markets. And they put certain regulations in place to prevent those pests from spreading to their countries. Now, one of those pests, well, there's two really of significance when it comes to the EU. The one is citrus black spot, CBS, and the other one is false codling moth, which is FCM. The concern from the European market or from the European countries is that these pests could spread through fruit as a vector. So we pack fruit here that has got FCM or false codling moth larvae in the fruit itself, or that has got citrus black spot, which is actually a fungal spore that's on the fruit, that has got that fungal spore on the fruit. We pack it here, we send it over there, they unpack it there, and all of a sudden they have false codling moth and citrus black spot in their countries. Now, it's been proven over and over again that scientifically this is not possible. It cannot happen. It is not viable for either the insect, false codling moth, or the fungi, CBS, to spread in this way. In the first place, neither the spores nor the larvae is viable by the time it gets there. It takes about 3 weeks, 4 weeks from when it's packed until it arrives in the overseas market. So it's not viable anymore. It can't survive. It can't live for that long to establish in their countries in the first place. In the second place, they do not have climatic conditions favorable to the establishment of those pests, particularly CBS. So that has been proven scientifically. The scientific case is there. The studies have been done over and over again. It is there. But our friends in Spain, which, as I said before, is the largest exporter of citrus in the world, has now used this question or this matter to drive a political agenda to limit the amount of citrus that we export to the European market. The reason for this is that over time, we have stretched the citrus season longer and longer and longer. So in South Africa now, we start picking citrus around March, and we pick right through to as late as November in some areas. And this is through cultivar development, cultivars that ripen earlier or that mature later, more and more different kinds of cultivars, different kinds of citrus. So at the moment, we run a season around 8 months of the year, which means that at the beginning of our season, at the end of our season, we encroach on the Spanish season. Some of their fruit is still in the market when our fruit start coming in, and by that time their fruit is pretty bad quality because it's late season fruit, and we come in with nice fresh fruit and we push their fruit out of the market and we compete with them. The same thing happens towards the end of our season. There's still some of our fruit in the market. By the time they come on, we compete with them. They don't like it. There's also been over the last few years, since about 2008, when there was enormous economic problems in the world, and again now with COVID, all of the economic repercussions of that. There's a lot of pressure on a lot of the economies in the EU. Amongst them Spain. Spain has been in a pretty bad economic position now for a few years, which means that the Spanish growers put a lot of pressure on the Spanish government to put regulations in place to prevent South Africa, or to make it difficult for South Africa to export their fruit. So what happened is that they put in place regulations so just maybe another technical. I'm sorry I'm carrying on about this, but it's actually a pretty interesting. Well, I think it's interesting. If you're not finding it interesting, please speak amongst yourselves. But all right, 1 more minute. All right, so one of the ways that they mitigate the spread of these diseases that many countries have put in place is called sterilization. So this means that when you transport the fruit, you put it on a ship, you put it under cooling. Now, most fruit from South Africa is exported under cooling anyway. So you pack it in a container at the pack house, you cool down the container, you put it on a ship, You keep it plugged in, keep it cold, and it's basically a big transportable refrigerator. And you on the overseas market, you then so most of it is exported under cooling, but under cooling at maybe 6 or 7 degrees. So it just keeps the fruit cold enough to extend its shelf life. If you are cooling fruit for phytosanitary purposes, you're cooling it to a lower level, as low as 0 degrees or 1 degree. Because they believe that slows down the growth of particular diseases. So many countries have got regulations in place that you have to cool fruit for about 3 weeks or whatever at a certain degree in order if you want to export to their countries. It is a real problem though, because it requires massive logistics in order to do that. To cool that amount of fruit to that kind of level is massive problems logistically. So what Europe has now done, it has now said that all of the fruit that goes into the European Union now has to be cooled to that particular. This is what he's referring to, is those particular temperature regimes that they've now put in place. But this is merely a political play. It was pushed through the European Union. It was done completely illegally, and in terms of all WTO trading standards and trading rules, this was not done according to the rules. But the only way that you can now address it is to go to the WTO. That has now been lodged with the World Trade Organization by our Department of Trade and Industry. But this is now a political play. So if we look at it, a very good example of how things become multidisciplinary, how things have to be addressed on various levels, this is a very good example of that. This can only be resolved on a political level. This can only be resolved on a trade level. It cannot be resolved on a scientific level. The science is there, the research is there, the willingness is there, everything is there, the political will. And the political will, especially from the EU, to tell Spain that they cannot do this, that this is against the regulations, is what we need in this particular case. It is a massive impact on the industry. It will have a massive impact throughout the season. And in terms of how much fruit we can send into Europe, all the fruit that was on the way to Europe at the time the regulation came into play will probably be destroyed on that side when it lands on that side, even though there's nothing wrong with the fruit whatsoever. So it is a massive problem for the industry. Yes, don't know how we will resolve it. So that won't take much time.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is the passionate part of you coming out as an educator. So very much appreciate. I learned quite a lot. And I hope that you also learned quite a few things, and especially the realities of the industry. So Offense and Van D, please just confirm if you are happy with the answers received on your questions. And because Jacomien give us extra context on the question, I'm just, in a very good way, by the way, I'm just going to ask that to move on to the other question. And if you want to add something on it, we'll just see what the other question is, because we're running out of time a bit. So your question. Okay, so the question is to all the speakers: how has climate change impacted your industry as well, the agriculture industry, and how have you adapted to it? Yes, okay. I'll start with you, Siziphiwe, online, and then we'll get to you, Oloff.
I'll be nice and short with that answer. Climate change has literally influenced our industry like in a major way. And to such an extent that if I just make an example, so for palm and stone fruit growers, typically situated in Ceres or in Grabo, you tend to find that a lot, especially in Grabo, which was a very marginal growing region for palm fruit anyways. And now, because the temperatures are just getting warmer and warmer, now a lot of growers need to start looking into different rootstocks, different crop types altogether to actually start planting in these regions that are marginal. I'm just making an example with 2 different regions now, that is. And obviously that means, because if you keep on planting what a crop that is traditionally needing a bit more cold units or cooler winters, and the winters are not that cool anymore, so we're not getting as much or a pear crop. So all marginal, and that's not just for pome fruit or stone fruit growers, but other fresh fruit produce as well, and even vegetables, that they needing to start looking into different genetics, different root stocks, different technologies to actually assist them in planting and firstly identifying what needs to be there or planted there, and also at a very fast rate, unfortunately, because a lot of people are talking about 2050, but the reality is it's actually way sooner than that. It might be 2030 or even sooner than that. And obviously, that's a huge investment for growers that when they've got all these hectareage of land and they've got certain varieties planted or certain crops planted, and now they need to start looking into actually getting different crop types to plant. So yeah, I know we're running out of time, so that's where I'm gonna, from my perspective of what I'm used to. But yeah, the long and the short of it is, climate change really is influencing growers quite a lot.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
agriculture.
Thank you very much. We missed a tiny bit of what you said after the winter problem. What was that? Oh, okay. Please just mute everyone. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Henk. We missed a tiny bit of what you said after the winter. What happens in your industry? If you can just quickly repeat that.
So just to
Climate change.
summarize that, but I think the point that I was bringing home is the fact that marginal regions that are planting marginal crops now need to start looking into planting different crops, and that's a huge investment for a lot of farmers, and that investment or that capital is not capital that a lot of growers actually have.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And I'll ask you to answer all of as briefly as you can. So we have 3 more minutes left from this, and I just ask if you can please give us 8 more minutes, and then I'm going to wrap up. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, does anyone have a burning desire to ask a question? Okay, cool. Thank you. So Oloff, can you please?
Look, I think climate change has always been with us. It just seems that the movements have become more severe lately. We've had record temperatures in Europe this season. We've had drought in the US. South Africa is going through its second year of La Nina, which meant we had a lot of floods in the interior, in areas that normally do not get that amount of rainfall. So it's a part of what we live with. We need to adapt. Technology is a very important thing. As potentially we get drier, we will have to manage the water resources I mentioned before. So, I think it is the combined challenges of a changing world, growing population, and finding ways and improving technology to feed people is going to be very challenging. I just want to add one quick thing. The previous person mentioned political interference and so forth. Now, food is probably the quickest way where any call it regime can get ousted. And we're sitting in an international environment where food inflation is running away. When the war in Ukraine started, Russia momentarily stopped exporting wheat to control interior prices of wheat. Indonesia tried to ban the exports on soybean oil to control prices. The unintended consequences was just after they opened, all the storage facilities were full of oil and the international prices tanked. Added to this, we're sitting in a situation where in the US, a large portion of the maize crop is being used for ethanol or biofuels. They also utilizing soybean oil to make biodiesel, the same in South America and Europe. So, food is competing not only as food these days, it's competing into the energy sector as well. And a lot of the renewable energy and green energy focus is promoting that side of the thing. So it's not only just climate change and the pure demand from a food point of view, it's also the competing factor out of energy for these type of products is also making things very interesting worldwide at the moment. And legislative changes and people putting export bans and so forth on prices that really influence the world markets.
Thank you very much, Oloff, and especially on just adding a bit more on that question. It's quite interesting, especially in relation to how politics just impact the industry so heavily. I see there's a hand at the back, and I'm going to take the hand, and then when they answer your question, I just ask you to please also give your closing remarks. And because I asked for 8 more minutes, I will time you all when you speak. And then I'll also interrupt you once you've run out of time. So please do ask your question, Hansel. Thank you for your question, Khanzo. And I think a person who does work, especially in relation to transformation, because the agriculture industry is one of the slowly transforming industries. But I'm going to ask Jacomien to please just touch on that because she has done some work on the transformation related issues, from what I understand. Did I understand it correctly?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Sorry. Okay. But please do answer that. And CCP, if you have something to add, Oloff, if you have something to add, please do. But
How
also
many
remember that these are
Sorry,
also
I
your
did not
closing
get the-
remarks.
Sorry,
How many minutes?
I couldn't hear the question at all.
Oh, you didn't hear the question?
At all.
Okay. So the organizers are also telling me that we are out of time. And that's why I'm asking them for this to be their wrapping closing remarks answers. So the question was, why is it so hard, especially for people of color, to get into the industry? And that, yes, whereas when they get employed after starting and getting extra degrees, they find that some of their colleagues haven't even obtained the degree for what they are doing, like the job that they are doing. So the question is like, why is it so hard? And I'm going to start with you, Jacomien, 2 minutes.
All right. So it is an answer that's probably a little bit longer than 2 minutes. So I don't think that I'd be able to to get all of that. But let me just say this. I don't really think that I'm sure Siziphiwe will expand on that further, or can expand on that further. But the job that she got is very technically advanced. So she needed a master's in order to do that job. Nobody without a qualification, without a master's, would be able to get that job. So I don't think you should compare or maybe equate your two particular situations. In terms of getting into the industry as a person, while in the Western Cape, it's probably also a question of language. That is unfortunately true in the Western Cape. This is a reality in the Onafhanklike Republiek. But generally speaking, it is true. The reality in agriculture is that it is more difficult probably for people of color to get jobs in the industry. But it is important that you must be clear on your skills, and that you must be clear on the job that you're looking for. If you eventually got a job that there are people doing that job that don't have qualifications, you probably had to settle for a job that's below what the skills levels that you actually have. So what I said at the beginning is matching your skills, being clear on what the skills are that you have, that you studied towards, and that you got, and what it is that you're looking for. I think that matching those two things up is very important to do. So I know it's a short answer, and it doesn't. As I said, I can. There's a lot more to be said around that. Maybe we can chat afterwards. Just in terms of closing remarks, yes, thank you all very much. This has really been a very good conversation. As you can see, I enjoy talking about these things. Well, I enjoy talking generally. So, and I enjoy talking about this, and especially enjoy talking to young people. It is such an exciting industry to be in. It's such an exciting, essential sector to be involved in. And it is such a wonderful sector to build a career in and to have a life in. So I want to encourage all of you to carry on. I want to encourage all of you to remain curious, to be out there, to ask questions, and to really pursue your careers in agriculture, and to keep growing along with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacomien. And then Siziphiwe. Siziphiwe. Okay. Oh, there she is. I'll just restart my timer. Siziphiwe, are you good to go?
Yes, I'm good to go. Sorry, this is a very personal question for me as well, because I've got a lot of stories to tell about this question, but I have to jump off, unfortunately, and it sucks that I'm not there to actually engage a bit more in this. But I think it's complex. It's interlinked. I know people that do have a master's for that matter, and they still feel that they, in different industries, whether it's in citrus, in poem, in blueberries, or whatever the case might be, or in vegetables for that matter, and they feel that their career advancement is also not moving as fast as some of the other colleagues that might have postgraduate studies and might not have postgraduate studies. But I think I'll be doing really injustice by just giving one set thing or one set answer to this question, because it's actually quite complex, unfortunately. And I don't think I've got all the answers myself. I think, like I said, I think one thing that I can possibly give you guys as an advice is that focus on your brand architecture, and that is making sure that you're focusing, you're knowable, which is important. Why you need to get into the industry before you actually start looking for a job. People need to know you, make connections, speak to people. That is one of the key things that can actually put you a step ahead than your other colleagues. Be knowable, trustable, and likable. And people love working with people they like. And again, like what Jacomien said, the Western Cape is a very difficult place for people that don't understand Afrikaans in our industry. And I think Limpopo is also, or up north actually, is also a very difficult one. Again, with me, perhaps it helps that I do speak Afrikaans. I lecture in Afrikaans. I have connections, but then again, not everybody does have those skills. So unfortunately, it's a very complex question that you ask, and I can't answer it in just one sitting. But yeah, that's just make sure you focus on your brand and being likable, trustable, and reliable. Like people really, and put yourself out there. That's the only advice I can give you guys for that question. Sorry. Can I excuse myself? If anyone would like to chat with me a bit further, can they add me on LinkedIn? And I think particularly maybe the person that asked that previous question, and then we'll have further discussions on just strategies on how you can differentiate yourself and so on. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I'm more than happy to actually have people add me on it.
Awesome. Her LinkedIn name is Siziphiwe Dinwa. Thank you for that. And yes, Siziphiwe, you may be excused. Thank you for joining us. And on that note, I'm going to end the evening, and good night, everyone.